Okay, I'm recording.
All right. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. As you know, we are going to be going over, first off, just a few general things on navigating KEAMS, so Kansas Environmental Information Management System, that online system that we're all trying to use for all our environmental permitting and all that now. And then specifically going into walking through how to renew your AST permit in KEAMS, so above ground storage tanks. Um, Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, as you probably just heard us discussing, and this will be posted to our YouTube channel after the webinar is concluded. We do have KDHE staff on to help answer questions, anything that we as SB might not know the answer to. So there will be a chance to ask questions at the end, but also if you have questions during, you can raise your hand to ask to speak, or you can put things in the chat, put any questions in the chat. If you have anything that you might want private for any reason, you can go ahead and message my colleague Arthur Fink if you want to private message some of those questions, and then he'll go ahead and read those out, just if for any reason you don't want your name associated with it on the recording. Otherwise, if you're not asking a question, we will ask that you make sure and keep yourself muted, just to keep the background noise down. So a quick introduction too, before we get into anything as far as, who's SBEEP, because I think I've said that a couple times. So, and I'm Allison Crowther. I'm with the Kansas Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, and that's part of the Pollution Prevention Institute, which is why you're seeing the Pollution Prevention Institute website on your screen. So the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, it's a program that each state is supposed to have that primarily originally deals with actually air permitting and compliance issues for small businesses. In some states like Kansas, that is expanded to cover other things. So we also cover hazardous waste, water, and underground storage tanks and above ground storage tanks. And just one quick note, it is the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, but how much we are limited to small businesses does kind of vary by what project we're working on. So for our storage tanks work, we're not really limited to small businesses. Just in case that's a point of confusion for anybody, we do also help medium and large businesses with those questions as well. We do have a lot of resources available for storage tanks and other environmental concerns on our website at sbeep.org. So a lot of our resources do relate more to underground storage tanks just because those requirements are more complex. But we do have a couple documents for above ground storage tanks. And I show you this because this is where we'll be posting the recording of this webinar. And we also have on our YouTube channel, which you can get to down here, a couple videos, one going through the general overview of KEAMS, and then one specifically on the permit renewal process for ASTs. That was just posted today. We're still working on getting it on our website, but this is also where you would go for those videos. So just a sec. Getting into KEAMS. So first off, how to access KEAMS. So if you're starting from the KDHE website, you want to go to the environment section, or I will say too, there's the quick links down here where KEAMS is a little bit further down the quick links than it is if you're on the environmental section. So we'll show you that there too, but I just wanted to show you it's a little bit different here. So you can go to the environmental section, and then you can either look under data and reporting, you'll see the link for KEAMS, or again, it's down in the quick links. And when you're in the environmental section, it's going to be the first thing under quick links. So we will go ahead and go to that page. So you can go ahead and get to KEAMS from here, or I also wanted to show you. So this is the general KEAMS page for all of KDHE, or some of the bureaus do have their own pages with more specific resources. So for above ground storage tanks, that's under Bureau of Environmental Remediation. So you would want to look at the remediation webpage. And this will give you more specific contact information for issues relating more to remediation work or work under that bureau. And there's also some resources that this bureau has put together that are, again, more specific to some of their permitting processes and some of their processes that you'd be working with in Keams. So again, you will click the logo to get to Keams, and you'll want to go ahead and hit proceed to site. Or if you just take a minute, it'll go there anyway. And then you can either create a Keams account or sign in with an existing account. So if you have already, if you've already done anything with Keams for your facility, you should already have an existing account. If you haven't done anything in Keams with your facility, and this is where, if I'm wrong on this process, someone in KDHE, please correct me. I think there should have been instructions sent out at some point on how to start that account. And I think a lot of those had a code to go ahead and link your site. Or I think you can start that here. And we'll talk a little bit about adding a site to your account. We're not going to go super into detail on that, but we are going to touch on that. And then if you need further instruction on that, that is covered in more depth in our general overview video. So, and I'm going to, instead of logging in here, everything I do is actually in the test environment. So I'm going to go to a different page because I'm already logged into that test environment. So a few kind of navigation notes as we get started. So one thing to keep in mind, so up here is where you select your site, and what shows up will change depending on what you have set. So if you have it by default, it will show you information for all of your sites. It'll look a little bit different depending on whether you've actually submitted a form for your site. So this is a site that we haven't submitted any forms for. So there's a little bit less here. This is one that there's been a fair bit of activity on, so it's got all the available sections. And this is the one that we have the actual test sites linked to. So this is the one we're going to be working in. And then a quick note here, again, just a quick little navigation thing. So this button here will minimize that side menu. You can click it again to pop that back out. Some parts of Keams do have their own back buttons, but you can generally use just your browser back button. Or if you're in one of the forms, then if you're trying to get back to kind of the main Keams, if you're trying to get out of that form, exit form to home is going to be the best way to do that. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the actual renewal form. So again, a little bit of navigation, just to show you kind of the home page. One thing I wanted to point out to begin with, so there's this need help at the bottom. It mentions help link icons, so they're not always present in this version of Keams, just so you know that they might not be there. I don't want you trying to chase those down, but there is the contact us link. Now that goes again to the Keams page. But again, this is the general Keams page. So you would likely want to be going to the remediation page and use your contact information off of that. All right, and then going back up and kind of start from the top. So that home button, that takes you to the dashboard actually, which is also where you end up when you first log in. And then about and contact, again, are actually going to take you to that general Keams page. And again, you'll find more specific resources on that remediation page. And this is also where you go to sign out. And then this button shows you your notifications. So that's going to be, it's a little pop out there, but it's going to be the same things that you would see under notifications here. And then this is where you go to your profile and settings. So this is where you'll have some of those details on the user for this account. You can see we just have kind of test account information put in here. One thing to note, if you want to change the login name or the email address, that you will actually have to contact KDHE. You can't change that on your own in here. You can change your password. Note that you will need to answer one of your security questions that you answered when, or that you set up when you first set up your account. And then another thing I wanted to highlight is the notification delivery preference. So you can either set it so that it only gives you notifications in Keams, so you see them when you log in, or you can have it do that and have it email them to the email address that you have set up for your account. Highly recommend keeping it on deliver-in system and via email, especially if you don't log into Keams very often, just to make sure you're not missing those notifications. And then you also see sites on here, so you can see sites associated with your account. This is also, again, if you have a code associated with a site that you want to add to your account, this is where one place you can put in that verification code. And then there is this signing authority tab. This doesn't really apply for you though. Last I knew, Bureau of Environmental Remediation isn't using anything with signing authority or the certifier agreement form. That's more something that's set up for work under other bureaus. So that's not going to be relevant, at least to your AST permit renewal process. And then going back to the home, kind of finish going through that. So browse forms, that's going to take you to the same place as start a new form. So we'll cover that a little bit more later, because that is also where you're going to go to start your permit renewal. And then add a site to your account. So if you have one that you need to add, you can either go to it has been registered with KDHE or it has never been registered with KDHE. So if it has been registered with KDHE, there's a search function, or again, if you have a verification code, you can enter that. Or another option you have is if someone else is associated with that site and is an administrator for that site, then they can request access for you, but you'll have to contact them by some means outside of Keams. You can't contact them through Keams and request that. Now, if it's never been registered with KDHE, so here, if you click that, it's going to take you to start a new form. And then when you try to start a new form, let's say it's an AST new permit. When you go to do that, it'll give you the option to create a new site and put the name there. All right. And then kind of going through some things on this left menu. So dashboard, this will show you your documents in progress and your fees due. And this is divided into a few sections. So priority, that is going to be documents that are in progress, that you've already started but maybe haven't submitted, or anything that needs revision. So if it's been flagged for something and they're looking for some kind of correction or addition to that form. One thing to note here, if you have a draft in progress that you haven't submitted yet, you can delete that. KDHE can't delete it for you. And once you submit, it can't be deleted. You can't, and KDHE can't delete it for you. So the upcoming section, which we don't really have anything to show here, but that is generally going to be forms with a set due date. So that could be a renewal. It's not going to show anything that's more than a year out, and KDHE can limit when these forms can be submitted. So they might say, yeah, this is coming up in 6 months, but you can't submit it until, say, 30 or 60 days before the deadline. So that is a limitation that they can put on there. As needed is going to be more one-time use fairs or one-time use forms. So this might be repair reports, or it can be recurring things such as maybe an annual testing requirement. And then draft, of course, that's forms in progress that haven't been submitted yet. To be signed, again, doesn't apply here. That's more of a signature requirement that applies for some things under other bureaus, but doesn't apply to this process. And then in process is things that have been submitted to KDHE for processing. And then notifications, again, we don't really have any examples here except kind of one here that it was that something was received. So that might be that a form was submitted and received. It might be reminders. It might be new requests. So things like that. And then as I'm going through, I'm realizing at some point I put it back in all instead of KDHE. And then details. So that's going to be more details on the site. So name, address, managers, just kind of general information there. And then related contacts or relations can also be related organizations. And so start a new form. We're not going to do in too much detail right now because we are going to come back to this for the actual permit renewal process. But you've got start a new application, renew, modify, or terminate an existing permit, license, or registration. So this is where we're going to go for that renewal. Reporting obligation to fulfill, service request, or I'm not sure. So that's just going to show you all of the forms that you can search through. And just to kind of show real quick, so there is a search function here that you can use. So let's say we're looking for forms within BER, because I think BER at least is set up this way so that most, if not all of their forms do start with BER. I don't think that's the case for all bureaus, but some of them it is. Or we might be looking for something with air, but not in this because there's not anything with an air permit associated here. But just kind of show that search function. And then submissions. So let's look at your submissions basically. And you can sort by status again here. So, you can look at draft, active, things are in process, not started, not approved. And then permit and registration. So for your different submitted permits, you can see, this one's in effect, this one's issued but not in effect, which generally means that it's been issued, it's just for the next permit cycle. So we haven't gotten to the beginning of the permit cycle it's for. But for any of these, you can see the date issued, the date effective, and the expiration date, as well as the contact for that permit at KDHE. Evaluations and inspections. So part of the reason you're not seeing anything here, or why you might not see much on yours, is a lot of the things that will be on here are more for the KDHE side. So they'll have inspections on their side, but that doesn't mean you can see inspection reports here. But if there's something like a notice of violation, then you would find that here. And then financials, so this is where you can see outstanding fees or ones that you've paid. Now, I think normally this would show an amount paid here, if I understand correctly. It looks like the way it's done in the testing system is that there's an adjustment, so it makes it 0 instead of actually showing as paid. So I think that might be a little bit different when you look at it on a real user account. But you can see here that you can see how much you have due on each submission. And we'll get back to this in a little bit because this is relevant to how you would go about, one way that you would go about paying your permit fees. And then we have documents. So this is going to have PDFs of forms, documents added by KDHE if they have been finalized and set to public. This is where you'll go to print your permit as well, if I remember correctly. And then just authorize users. So that's just showing users with facility side access to the site. Note this is only going to show up if you have a specific site selected and a form has been submitted for that site. So now getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty that you're probably looking for, actually starting the permit renewal process. So again, we want to make sure that we have the site selected. So KDHE, that is what we want selected. If not, we go back to this drop down, make sure we have the one we want. Go to renew, modify, or terminate an existing permit, license, or registration. And this is where I like to look, and I put in above ground or something like that, just because AST, sometimes you can catch the letters AST in another word. One thing to note here, sometimes you might see multiple versions of this. You want to check that version number. So in this case, V4.0. And if there are multiple versions, just make sure that you've got the one with the highest version number. And you would hit begin. And then begin form entry. And I actually have this set up on another one because sometimes schemes can take a little bit to load. So a few notes on form navigation before we get too far into this. It does automatically save at points, I think at least when you go between sections, but it's always best practice to go ahead and save progress frequently, just to make sure that you're keeping all that data that you've got. And then you do have this outline on the left, so that's how you can kind of navigate between sections, or you can hop to the next one from here. This is a good way to go back and forth. You have a clear section button here, but note that a lot of the information is going to be auto-populated from your registration. So if you hit that clear section, you might clear more than you wanted to. And generally, if you've got information that's already entered that you would need to change, you would need to do that by talking to KDHE anyway, especially if you're trying to change the owner name or something like that. Note that you will need to fill out a change of ownership form. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Just want to make sure and note that. Another thing to know, so you can mouse over, here's where you do find that I symbol. It gives you information about the different parts of the form that you need to fill out, just to kind of give you a little bit more on what goes there. And then this is the exit form to home that we were talking about. So this is the best way to get back to Keams from here. Or, I also sometimes just keep multiple tabs open. It makes it easier to navigate sometimes. So looking specifically at this first section, and like I said, a lot of this is already populated. So the facility name, KDHE facility ID, facility street address, and facility mailing address, those are all already populated. And that's, if you have any changes there, I believe you will have to contact KDHE to change that. Now we do have, and then the section that you do need to fill in, that's facility contact. So if the facility contact is someone that is already has an account in Keams and is linked to this site, then you can select them from the drop down. So we'll go with Eric Settle in this case. And then if not, you can put that in manually. But we went ahead and put that in, and you will need to put the phone type if it's not already in your drop down. So that would be home, main, business, other, or mobile, and that is one of the required fields. And then you can also add a phone if you need to put an additional phone number on there. All right, and going to the next section. So this is going to be tank owner and 24-hour emergency contact information. And here again, if there's been a change in ownership, you will need to fill out the change of ownership / change in product or status form. You cannot change the ownership within this form. Even, here you can put tank owner contact. You can put a different name, but that does not replace filling out that form. You will need to make sure that you've got that form in before you submit your renewal. So again, this can be auto-filled. I believe, yeah, it's already got that name in there. And you can also, if you put an address in, you can also hit that validate address to make sure you've got a valid address in there. And again, you also need the 24-hour emergency contact. So you need first name, last name, phone type, and phone number. Or again, we can pick something to autofill here. And then going to the next sections, this is tank information. And this is auto-populated from your permit or from your registration again. So you shouldn't have anything to change here, and you can't change it in here. And again, I think most things that you would want to change would again be that change of ownership / change in product or status form. Now, one kind of little navigation thing to note here, you've got this number here, so the 1 here, so that's the number of tanks that you have associated. Have that up here too. If there were more than one tank on here, you would be clicking down here to toggle between those. And again, I don't think you would be adding new tank information, because that would likely be a new permit, which is going to be a separate form. for a new registration. And again, you have clear and duplicate. I would not use these because you're probably making changes that aren't going to actually count in here, but it might make a headache for you. Okay, and then going to the fees section. And this will show you your total per facility. And again, to note here, the deadline for this is December 31st. And as I understand it, it either needs to be paid online, or if it's paid by mail, I believe that needs to be received by KDHE by December 31st. And we'll get into those payment methods a little bit more in a bit. And if it's submitted after December 31st, then in addition to your $10 per tank, you're also going to have a $50 late fee per tank. So you want to make sure and get those submitted on time. And that's by December 31st. And this isn't where you pay it. It's not going to prompt you to pay until you submit. But this is just letting you know what your fee is going to be. Then we get into the review section. And one thing to note here, if there was a required field that you didn't fill out, it'll flag that, and you'll get some red text telling you that the form is incomplete, and it's not going to let you submit when you get to that point. But if you just have an error, but you have all the required fields filled in, it's not going to catch anything when you go to submit. So you want to make sure and review here and make sure this all looks correct. So then next we go to certify and submit. And this actually is the part where if you try to submit and you have anything that was a required field that's not filled in, this is where it's going to stop you. But we have everything filled in. So we can either save and exit, just as long as we make sure to submit this by December 31st, or we can go ahead and submit form. And this is where it's going to prompt you to pay, and you can either pay online, and that link is going to take you to ICANN. So that's an external vendor that you can do your online payment through, and you can just continue as guest. You can log in if you have an account, and I've heard the main reason that you would maybe want to do that is if you have multiple fees you're trying to pay at once, then you can use the cart function. And if you continue as guest, you have to do them one at a time. One thing to note, I believe there is a processing fee for making the payment online. I don't remember how much it was. I think it was just a couple bucks or something like that, but I believe there is a processing fee. And also, if you're paying online, you'll get your receipt through Pay It. That your receipt for that payment won't be posted anywhere in Keams. You want to make sure and get that when you pay, and print that from there, because it's not going to be posted in Keams at any point.
Hey, Allison.
Yes.
We did have one quick question that was in the chat, and I just wanted to throw that out right now because we're kind of talking about that. The question is, when will there be a tab or a button that says renewal as last year?
I don't know. I don't know specifics on upcoming changes. Does anybody in KDHE know?
Yeah, Allison, as far as I know, it's still being worked on.
What are we going to do by Thursday? Get a lot of space heaters in here.
Yeah, I guess.
Hope for the best.
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like that's in progress, but we don't necessarily have an expected time. Is that correct, Marcus?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. And then I also had someone posting in the chat that it is a $2.75 processing fee if you're submitting online, or if you're paying your permit fee online. All right. So that is for paying online. And then also if you go to, if you want to pay by mail, I have too many tabs open. Here we go. Okay. And I'll look at KDHE again. So you'll go to the Financials tab, and then you will click Open. And this is also where if you didn't pay at the time that you submitted your renewal when it prompted you, you can also pay online here. Or if you want to pay by mail, you want to hit Generate Payment Voucher. So that is going to have the information that they need on your payment. You also want to make sure that your facility ID is on here. And then this also has directions for mailing. One thing to note, this still says Suite 310. It should actually be Suite 410. We actually just realized that like late last week. So I think they're going to be changing that, but just so you know, for now, it should be Suite 410, and that's who you need to be mailing this to. All right, and then so once you have paid online or KDHE has received your mailed payment, you have completed your renewal. And then once approved, you will have a notification in Keams that the status has been updated to complete. And then you can check in, oh, now I'm getting the sections mixed up. It's permits and registrations. Yes, sorry, getting the sections mixed up. But in permits and registrations, if it is in the current permit cycle, it's going to show in effect. If it's been issued, but you're not in that permit cycle yet, it'll show issued not in effect. And then you can also print from the Documents tab once that permit has been approved and processed and is ready to use. So that'll be available. If it's during the permit cycle, it'll be available the day after the renewal is completed. Otherwise, it'll be available in July prior to the new permit cycle, and that begins in August. And then just so that's the process. And a quick note that if you need to contact KDHE regarding tanks, you would want to email kdhe.tankinfo@ks.gov and make sure to include your owner ID, facility ID, and your specific question. SBEEP is also available to help with questions regarding Keams and other aspects of ASTs, whatever we can help with. And Arthur, could I get you to put our contact information in the chat? And then, so that's the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions?
Hey, Allison,
Yes.
did you just want phone numbers and emails, addresses for both of us?
Yeah, and if you could also put our hotline number.
Yeah.
And the hotline email address. Okay, so we've got one question. What if you are sure you have an account, but have no idea what the login is to get this updated and paid? I am taking over for someone else. So someone at KDHE can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would want to contact KDHE because they're going to have the login information for that. And I think they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to update that for you.
Yeah, Allison, we can actually help them get a new account all to themselves.
Okay. So then would they want to start by contacting KDHE or go ahead and create a new account and work on linking that?
Send an email to that tanks info email account, giving us their facility number. And then we will respond to them and send them an invite in order for them to get into that file.
Okay. And then somebody said the receipt you showed did not have a facility address on it. For those with multiple locations, this is a problem.
The facility address is up at the top of that.
But you're right, it is a single.
Marvin, I believe that was your question. Does yours not have that address up there at the top?
No, not all of them come through with an address on them.
Actually, very few of them in what I've found, and then trying to figure out what site ID goes with what address can be a challenge.
So normally when that comes up, it usually, especially on that payment voucher, it's supposed to have a submission number, submission date, who it's submitted by, and then I think it's the form along with the site, and then the account amount due.
Allison, if you'll scroll down to the bottom of that section, notice there, guys, that the invoice number, we can identify it. I understand what you're saying, that you can't identify it. Is that what you're getting at?
Correct.
That, to be honest, I don't know the solution to that. It's, most of you know, I'm fairly new here. I believe that's going to have to be something that we'll have to get with IT and see if we can put that down there at the bottom of your, or at the top of those specific addresses. But that is not something that I can do, but I think probably something we can get IT involved with.
We get the renew all button at the same time.
Good luck, Marvin. We are working on some avenues where we do have a landing page that hopefully will make it easier for everyone, but that is in the works. But for one button, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what all is exactly planned.
All right, so our next question, somebody says, I have a permit that runs from August 2022 to July 2023. Do I still need to renew by December 31st, 2022?
Absolutely. The deadline for the 23-24 is December 31st, 2022. So they all must be in here and paid for by the end of next week.
And then somebody asked, we can still get to the renewal site by going to keams.kdhe.ks.gov. Is that correct? I'm going to enter that in and see if it gets to the same
That's what I
one,
was
because
gonna
that's the
say.
best thing I can think to do.
Let me add a computer and type and I'll let you know.
Well,
Yep.
that looks to be the same
Scroll-
one. So,
Scroll down, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Down there, sign in with an existing account.
Yep.
yep, takes you to the same thing.
Yep.
All right.
If any of you want, we do have a tutorial that gives you screenshots and instructions through the renewal process. Feel free to email us and we can get that out to you, and it will take you step by step by step. We have found it very beneficial to a lot of people that have never done it on Kings before. So feel free to email me or to the tanks info and I will get that out to you.
All right, and somebody said, is there anything else I need to do because I have submitted my renewal information for the AST and the permit page shows effective date as effective date of August 1st, 2023 and expiration date of July 31st, 2024 shows issued, just not in effect.
That means it's not in effect till July or till August 1st of 23. That's why it's showing not in effect. And it will not be in effect until August 1st.
But it sounds like they're good to go. It's just showing that way because it wouldn't show as being in effect until
Right.
the beginning of that permit cycle.
Correct.
Right now they have their current permit, and then when the next permit comes up, that becomes active and the old one supersedes.
And then somebody asked, what is the email again for the step-by-step instructions? And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat, but that's is that the kdhe.tankinfo@kansas.gov?
We will get it there, yes, or you can feel free to give them my email also.
Okay. I'm not, is that Sandra there? Okay.
Yep, yep.
That's Sandra.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
me.
I don't think I've actually seen you before, and I'm going off of a forehead right now.
We're having issues with mine.
Sandra, make sure I got this correct, but oh, I'm putting that to waiting room participants. That's a good plan. Okay, here we go.
Yes, ma'am. And that is really the quickest and easy way is to get a hold of me, guys.
And again, too, we do have a couple videos on our YouTube site and on our website, and then this webinar also. Once we get off and get the recording process, that's going to be posted to our YouTube site as well, and I'll be working on getting that on our website. Any other questions?
I have one. This is Marvin Spees. Can you send out notifications like for this Zoom call? Can you send it to the tank owner? So I get one instead of over 100 of the same email?
I think when it went out by facility. So yeah, I believe my understanding was that some folks even got 3 per facility.
Well, there were a bunch of them, trust me.
Yeah.
And the way that we have it set up right now, you actually get one per permit. So basically, you're going to get one for every facility that has an active permit. And we've even noticed sometimes if you have one permit that's in effect and you have another one that's in process, you'll actually get 2. You'll get one for each. I don't know if that can be changed. I know we've kind of looked into that before, but that's the way we have it set up at the moment.
Change it when we get the renew all button.
Great. Any other questions? All right, somebody asked, can you update information during the renewal process? Example, the permit does not specify materials of construction of a tank in the permit. Can I add? So I believe that would be something you would have to do in the change of ownership / change of product or status form. And then once you fill out that form and that's approved by KDHE, you would have to start your renewal over. Is that correct?
The permit will not show the type of construction of the tank. It simply shows that what the product is, your tank number, and how many gallons. It does not include anything about the construction. So if that tank has changed that construction type, then you probably have a new tank. If it's just something that was missing in your original, you can always submit a change of status that'll give us that additional or different information, but your permit itself will not have that on it. So your permit renewal will not indicate that.
We normally keep that in our database. So yeah, we do need to know what the, basically if it's steel or, what we have there. But yes, it's not included on the permit.
It seems like there's a question there, Allison, about if they can request a tutorial in this chat. Be honest with you guys, my system isn't working for this chat, so I'm at Marcus's desk. I don't have paper and pen here, so no, the email would be the best and easiest way to submit that to me. And then I'll just respond. And trust me, I usually respond with all my emails or phone calls in less than 24 hours. So you will get a response back right away.
Right. Any other questions? It doesn't look like it. And again, if you do come up with anything else, you can contact SVEEP, you can contact KDHE either at that general address that Sharon put in the chat, or again, for the tutorial or something, you can contact Sandra at sandra.m.dowell@ks.gov. And thanks everybody for being here. Thanks especially to KDHE for being on to, answer any questions and help make sure people were getting the right information. Everybody have a good day and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.